Hello and welcome back to the Messy Disciples. We're really excited to have you here today. We are recording this in the middle to end of October 2021. Today's a real interesting topic. Pastor Bob had spent a little bit of time thinking about what we're going to do to add to our Halloween series, which was pretty popular last year. And we're excited to see more and more people going back and taking a look at these older videos that we've done and bringing new life and new meaning to them, especially in the present here. So we're excited to be able to release this before Halloween comes around and All Saints Day comes around. And I asked Pastor Bob, I said, Pastor Bob, what do you want to do for a topic for this year to add to the Halloween series? And he kind of blew my mind when he responded back with something that I did not expect the pastor to say. And he said, well, let's do witches and the Walking Dead. And I said, okay, let's do it. I'm really excited to see what you've got today, Pastor Bob. As always, I've always been very curious and intrigued when you take a topic in society that's going on in our everyday lives here, or that somehow affects us, or that, most of the stuff too that falls into this category somehow comes in the form of, media, pushing some kinds of concepts or ideas into us that, somehow permeate into our society and they become regular. Even when they are not really regular things, they're irregular things. The undead tends to kind of fall under that category. So Pastor Bob, tell us all about what we're doing today, and tell us about the what we're going to talk about here with the witches and the Walking Dead.
So I want to do like kind of a two-parter. I want to take a look at something in 1 Samuel chapter 28, a little instance with King Saul and the Witch of Endor. And then in the second part, I want to talk about Ezekiel 37 and what happens to all those corpses in the valley, how they become reanimated and come back to life. And I want to do that to talk about, something that's kind of thematic with this time of year, which is Halloween, or what Gio and I prefer to talk about as All Saints Day. And so we want to kind of keep it thematic and add to our Halloween series, but also maybe ask some different questions that don't typically get asked about these stories. And so I'm going to read the story, and then we're going to just kind of back and forth. All right, you ready, Gio?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
1 Samuel 28, I'm going to read the account that's there, and then kind of just dive right in. It says, in those days, the Philistines gathered their forces for war to fight against Israel. And Achish said to David, understand that you and your men are to go out with me in the army. And David said to Achish, now Achish is a Philistine, so that's like a little background. David is fleeing for his life from Saul. And so he's hanging out with the Philistines, who are the enemy. And David's doing that to get some inside intel. He's doing a double cover kind of thing. So David said to Achish, very well, you shall know what your servant can do. And Achish said to David, very well, I will make you my bodyguard for life. And so David has been successful in infiltrating the enemy. Now, Samuel had died, and Israel had mourned for him and buried him at Ramah, his own city. And Saul had put the witches, the mediums, and the necromancers out of the land. And the Philistines assembled and came and encamped at Shunem. And Saul gathered all of Israel, and they encamped at Gilboa. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. And when Saul inquired of the Lord, and this is really key, the Lord did not answer him. So the Lord didn't answer him by dreams or by Urim or by prophets. Then Saul said to his servants, seek for me a woman who is a witch, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, behold, there's a witch at Endor, which has nothing to do with George Lucas and the Return of the Jedi. So Saul disguised himself and put on other garments and went, he and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by the night, and he said, divine for me by a spirit, and bring up for me whoever I shall name to you. And the woman said to him, surely you know that's what Saul has done, how he was cut off all of the witches and the necromancers from the land. Why then are you laying a trap for my life to bring about my death? Because Saul had made witches and necromancers illegal. And so verse 10, But Saul swore to her by the Lord, as the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing. And then the woman said, who shall I bring up for you? And he said, bring up Samuel for me. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice. And the woman said to Saul, why have you deceived me? You are Saul. The king said to her, do not be afraid. What do you see? And the woman said to Saul, I see a God coming up out of the earth. And he said to her, what is his appearance? And she says, as an old man, he's coming up, and he is wrapped in a robe. And Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he bowed with his face to the ground and paid homage. Then Samuel said to Saul, why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? And Saul answered, I am in great distress, for the Philistines are warring against me, and God has turned away from me and answered me no more, either by prophets or by dreams. Therefore I have summoned you to tell me what I shall do. And Saul said, why then do you ask me, since the Lord has turned from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done to you as he spoke by me, for the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor. And because you did not obey the voice of the Lord and did not carry out his fierce wrath upon Amalek, therefore the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, the Lord will give Israel also with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The Lord will give the army of Israel also into the hand of the Philistines. Okay, so here's the scene. Saul is a king by God's choosing, and he's a big and powerful guy, and that's great. The problem with Saul, whoa, that's fun. I love it. Okay, good job. And so Saul is a flawed king, but here's the thing that's always interesting. He is always only sought the Lord. He has only sought God. I think that's interesting. King Solomon, he worshiped false gods. Rehoboam, Jeroboam, Joachim, all these kings of Israel, they sought after other gods. Here you have Saul, who is a flawed man and has messed up greatly on many things, but he has always only sought the Lord. Now, in his faithfulness, he makes, witchcraft and necromancy, he makes it illegal. But notice this, Gio, this is what I find interesting, that even when he seeks out a witch, it's not to practice witchcraft, a different religion. He seeks out a witch because he wants to inquire of his God. Do you see that?
I don't get it.
So you would seek out a witch when you want to play with another religion, right?
Okay.
When you want to go to some other God. But since Saul inquired of the Lord, and the Lord's not answering him, he asked by prophets, by word, by dreams. He's asking God, I need your help. I need to talk to you. And God is not answering him. So since God is not answering him, he actually uses a practitioner of a different religion to try and get in touch with his own God.
Oh,
do you see that?
Interesting.
And so because God's not answering him the way that he wants, and God's not answering him at all, he seeks out a witch to do it. So even in his unfaithfulness and going and seeking after a witch, he's trying to be faithful to his God. Or as we like to say from the songs, he's looking for love in all the wrong places. And so I find this really strange irony in this story. Saul seeks a witch to do a very witchy kind of thing, and he does it with the best of intentions, and it's still wrong. Now, here's what I also find interesting. The witch is completely surprised that it worked. She is blown away. She's like, this actually worked, and she sees Samuel, and it says that Samuel looked like a God coming out of the earth. This is Christians in the resurrection. We will rise with Christ. And so she's seeing that, and it's blowing her away and scaring her and scandalizing her. Okay, Gio, I threw two big things out there. What do you think?
Well, I'm not 100% clear. So,
okay.
First of all, the thing that stands out to me the most on this that I didn't know is that there is even a mention of witches as far back in the Bible as this is. And so that validifies it.
Yeah.
It shows that witches have had a place in history that far back, and the way you just described it as being another religion, or being able to contact another, there's I guess some proof in that, so much as Samuel even says, well, listen, I'm not getting a response here, so I need to try something else, and I'm going to go way outside the box.
Yeah.
Although you said that previous kings had followed or searched out or contacted in other ways, or worshipped other idols and gods in previously, but Samuel says, well, listen, I really need to get a response here, and I'm gonna try something pretty whacked out, something way outside of the box. I'm gonna go and contact a witch. And then not only that, but then the Bible also verifies that God listened and it worked.
He listened and it worked, but I don't think that God's saying it's okay to go to witches and to seek out all these guys.
No,
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
insinuating that.
Yeah.
But my
But it
question, I
worked.
guess, to you is, yeah, it worked. And so my
Yeah.
question to you is why? Why did God verify it? Why did God say, okay, I'm gonna have, I'm gonna respond, or I'm gonna, have some kind of a verification, or make this valid by having a reaction once you've incorporated this witch here. So, I was thinking a couple different things, but I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. And how does that play in here? And then I have another question that, maybe you can piggyback in your explanation, but why did you choose this for the story today?
Okay, so I'll answer the first one, then the last one. The first one that I want to answer is, I believe that it worked, not because witchcraft works, but I believe that it worked because God needed to let Saul know, I'm not just giving you the silent treatment just because I'm trying to be rough. Like, you're on the outs. Like, what you're doing is wrong.
Okay.
And so God allows it to work so that way Saul, again, if he didn't get it by the silent treatment, he's going to get it by the vocal treatment. And I think that we do this sometimes with people that we love or our friends, when we ask them, what's the matter? What's the matter? And they're not ready to talk, and they're not ready to talk, and they're not ready to talk. And then we just keep on pushing them. And then finally it all comes out and it's ugly. So this is that moment for
Okay.
Saul. He should have gotten it by the silent treatment, but he pushed God too far. And God said, fine, I will speak through this, and you will see unequivocally that you are dead wrong. And so that's the reason why I believe God allowed it. And I think that's something that we can track in our normal human experience. What do you think?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then why did I choose it today? Because it strikes me that Saul gets a bad rap in the Bible. Like, yeah, he messed up, and legitimately so, and he did wrong things. But I mean, if you were to line up, and we always give David like David's perfect and David's great, and we give David a lot more. Like, we make him Richard Gere when we're making a movie about him. We make sure he's a good guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't for Saul. We make him some gnarly dude. But I'm gonna compare David and Saul and say that Saul actually acted more faithfully than David did, more consistently. They both messed up. Both David and Saul messed up. But I'm looking at Saul and I'm seeing somebody who never gave up on God. And I think that that's interesting.
Okay.
And so, go ahead.
But how does it play in then here for the Halloween series? I mean, just the mere mention of a witch, is that the tie, or is there more?
Yeah, is it a one-off? I think that sometimes we want to see what where God is at in the world, and I think that we want to understand our relation to the afterlife and all these kinds of things, and we want to know like where our ancestors are and all that kind of stuff. And we have two holidays right next to each other. We have All Saints Day, which is November 1st, a day in which we remember our loved ones who are in heaven, and we give thanks to God for their good example, and we rightly honor them, right? And the way that the world messed that up is they threw witches and goblins and ghosts right out in front of it. And so the good thing, which is thanking God for what he's given us and our loved ones, is sometimes besmirched by all of the vile, satanic, awful, ghoulish things that happen. And so some people are out there and they're acting like Saul. They're looking for God in all the wrong places, right? And they're looking for good things in their life in all the wrong places. But there's only one place, and that's with God Almighty. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, good tie. Good tie.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, listen, everybody, if you want to hear some more about this, if you want to ask Pastor Bob some more questions, and there's a lot here that he just went through. I never knew that there was a mention of witches or witchcraft in the Bible. Certainly not in this way either. And I know that there's a lot here, and I'm sure that Pastor Bob could talk for a lot more about this. So we encourage you to please leave some comments below and ask some questions. If anything pops into your head, we'd love to get some more conversation on this and talk a little bit more about this story and how it can relate to your life personally, being able to understand where to go when you're searching for the kinds of answers that you need. In this particular example, what do you do? What's the right thing to do, or what's the wrong thing to do, rather, when you're not hearing the answers that you want or that you may expect from God when you're talking to him. And this is a great example here of something not to do. And somehow also, how God is speaking to us through that silence. I mean, we've touched upon that topic a lot in past conversations as well. And I think whisper is one of the topics that we've done in the past, where we learn to listen to what God is saying by being quiet. And Pastor Bob made an excellent example of the silent treatment, and how God uses silence as well as speaking. And I think that that's a really important point to start to understand. So if you want to talk more about it, if you want to add some comments or get some more discussion going, please do so below. And please share, and please click on the alert button so that you know when we put out more videos. Pastor Bob said this is going to be a couple of parts, and we are going to have another part right after this that we're going to be posting as well. So make sure you check that out. If you haven't seen that yet, please do so. Pastor Bob, you got anything else you want to say on this before we conclude this segment?
It's really just this conversation starter. So keep the conversation going in the comments, and Gio, excellent questions, and let's see where it can go.
Great topic.
Thanks for watching today. It's been a great conversation. We'd love for you to be a part of the conversation. So go ahead and click subscribe. And if you hit the notification bar, it'll let you know when new videos are coming out, which is really important because all of our videos are about new and current events that are happening. If you have any questions, go ahead and contact me via email. It's great to have you a part of the conversation. Thanks for joining us. Bye.